bad guy character in professional wrestling.
When's the last time you got laid?
French toast is the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Like, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Can we tell the truth about Dusty sooner or later?
Bro, less people wanted that than are currently watching our stream.
And you know Vince, and you still think, are these true? It's like...
Welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Mark It Down podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, and I am technically by myself tonight because I'm late, which is why I'm late. But we are quickly joined by James Asante from Yankee Stadium. James, well, how's the game going? You guys are up, I think, 6-5?
Well, what's up, everybody? Here live from the World Series. I've aged like 5 years watching the game, but Rev, have a good one. It was a great Dynamite from what I saw. You got this. Talk to you later, pal.
All right, thank you, James. Nice to have a cameo there briefly. Let's try to get you properly out of here. I got you there. And as I was saying, welcome everybody to the show. Again, sorry I'm late. I am riding solo. I'm still fighting off this cough. I'm a disaster, but I am here, and I am going to review AEW Dynamite one way or the other. You know what asking who this drunk fool at the bar is? He's actually at the physical game. You do have to give them respect. I was never so foolish as to call in from Shea Stadium, or excuse me, City Field while I was at the games because I was definitely drunk. But James, knowing him, was actually probably pretty sober. You know what? Also, thank you for being here. I will get to all of your comments as they come up throughout the show. So let us start the show. And we originally kind of started with, after a promo package for Fright Night tonight here on Dynamite, what was looking to be another BCC video package. But as Claudio began to speak about Moxley building this company with his bare hands, Orange Cassidy comes out to the ring, telling the people backstage, the monkeys in the truck, to cut that stuff off, and that we don't want to hear from them anymore. Orange gets into the ring and says that he doesn't normally do this. He doesn't like coming down and telling everyone he's a leader for 10 minutes because he is no leader. But after last week, when he slid into the ring to watch Chuck Taylor get his neck crushed by a steel chair, he was surrounded by people that shouldn't have been there. I believe he said shouldn't. It was a little hard to make out whether or not he said should or shouldn't, but it sounded to me like he said shouldn't based on the context and what followed. What he said after that was that while he admires all those people's courage, calling them the very young but talented future of AEW. And while he was thankful they were there, they have no idea of the danger that they are in or how dangerous Jon Moxley is. So it was there when Orange knew what he needed to do, because if Mox has his way, there will be no AEW, and all of those kids will have no place to go. For the record, he didn't call them kids, but he says that Mox doesn't need, has never needed AEW, but Orange himself needs AEW, and he wouldn't exist without AEW, and the fans as well, they don't exist without AEW. So he declares that what he needs to do is cut off the head of the snake, and he has to go about this alone in order to protect everybody. And in order to do that, he challenges, Orange does, Moxley for the AEW World Championship, saying he will take the symbol of his company and what it represents out of Moxley's bag and put it into his backpack. Orange tells Mox to let him know, and that he won't be hard to find because he will be where he is every week, right there in the ring, because he is Orange Cassidy. He will be the next AEW World Champion, and he still does not need a catchphrase. So, great stuff from Orange here. It is always nice hearing these big promos from Orange because he is really good at them. But obviously, they are kept few and far between, and this is why. When Orange comes up and does something like this and says stuff like this, it makes it that much more poignant. Hey, there we go. Much better lighting. I didn't know why my lighting was so low. Apparently, it's been on half the entire time. But it makes these moments much more poignant and important within AEW. And I do like here how Orange is stepping up to the plate here after the last few weeks of people telling him he should and that he can. But at the same time, he's still not being a leader. He wants to go about this alone in order to protect everybody else, because he is so afraid that other people are going to get hurt because of the wars he has had previously with Jon Moxley. You could tell that Orange is definitely still scarred from some of those battles, just, but because he's so afraid for everybody else. So it's pretty obvious here that eventually, and we'll talk more about it later, Orange is going to get a shot at the title. I would imagine it's going to be at Full Gear. But I thought this was awesome from Orange because he is both simultaneously stepping up and not stepping up. He's caring, but while still keeping everyone's at arm's length, because outside of Chuck, he's got the conglomeration, but, Chuck Taylor was his best friend. Other than that, while he's cool with everybody, he doesn't really have those tight bonds even with people like, in the conglomeration. He's cool with them, but, he very clearly hasn't been around recently trying to help Kyle and another fucking moth. Oh, I got him. No way. I got him. All right, I won't show a dead bug on TV, but I just absolutely nailed that, and that was awesome and disgusting all at once. I'm sorry. But where was I? Yeah, you can see, though, that, like, he's not that he doesn't like Briscoe and Kyle, but he clearly hasn't been helping them with this Jericho thing of late, with, ever since this stuff with Moxley started. So it's interesting to see how much people try to help him, and confirming to me that yes, it will be for Full Gear. The title match is correct. Thank you. I forgot they put the cryon up. Appreciate it. No producer boy. You're gonna like have producer boy for me. It tonight. He's just gonna be fact checking me in the comments. So thank you. But it's gonna be interesting to see how, as Orange tries to go about this alone, who will attempt to maybe step up and help him, and whether or not Orange accepts any of that help. Okay, awesome. Doesn't look like our Twitter went out properly, but that's okay. So we will just keep moving. Chaos tonight here at the Markdown Podcast. As we head to a backstage interview with Mercedes Moné and Kamille as they arrive at Dynamite. Kamille obviously has her match later in the night with Kris Statlander. So Renee asked Mercedes if she had a prediction for the match, and Mercedes was like, well, first of all, Renee, allow the CEO to say hi to everybody, because she's got to get that line off every time. And then as for the question itself, Mercedes says that she hates answering stupid questions, but if Renee wants a prediction, she could just look at Kamille and then look at Statlander and figure it out herself, or at least something to that effect. After this, we went into the ring for our first match, which saw Adam Cole get in the ring for the first time since his injury, and he faced off against Buddy Matthews. So this actually started with this was a really good match. It really was. They gave him a lot of time. Obviously, these two guys are very, very talented. Cole didn't look too out of step. He did play off the angle of the ankle, I guess you could say. By tweaking it a little bit earlier, but they continued to have a pretty even match until eventually Buddy just was like, fuck this, and goes right after Cole's ankle, attacking it and eventually stomping onto it repeatedly on the steel steps. This causes Doc Sampson to come over, and the referee, who I believe was Bryce Remsburg, to hop out of the ring to check up on Cole, and the three of them seem to agree that this match needs to stop. So Doc Sampson throws Cole's arm over his shoulder and starts helping Cole up the ramp, but Buddy's not having this, so he grabs a microphone and asks Cole if this is how he wants to go out. Buddy says that he was right about Cole, that this new Cole is fragile, and he calls Cole a little bitch. Obviously, Cole wasn't going to let this stand, so he storms back in the ring, and the two exchange some heavy, heavy blows, and eventually Cole's just like, all right, buddy, literally, you want to go after the ankle? Go for it. And he baits Matthews in, and then is able to hit multiple super kicks. But when Cole pulls down the knee pad and tries to lower the boom, his ankle gives out. Matthews, that's a fine, then immediately goes after him, and they actually continue to exchange some pretty large blows And Cole's ankle would give out occasionally to give Buddy the advantage, including, most importantly, at the end of this exchange on a Panama Sunrise where Cole lands, but he doesn't land properly. The ankle gives, and Matthews counters with a buckle bomb, and then is the second stomp of the match. But Cole, very pissed off, is able to kick out at 1. He battles back and eventually gets Matthews in the corner and is able to hit a Panama Sunrise. And this sends Matthews all the way out of the ring. So Cole follows him and then hits a second one onto the floor. Cole then rolls Buddy back into the ring and lowers the boom to the back of Matthews' head, getting the 3 count for the win. After the match, Cole grabs Mike and tells Buddy that he knows what he did for him. He brought out the old Adam Cole, and for that, Cole thanks him, and the two shake hands. However, as they're shaking hands, the lights go out, and when they come back on, Cole is then shaking hands with Malachi Black. Cole's obviously very shocked and surprised, but this is Malachi's way of calling Cole out for a match in the future, and Cole tenuously steps back, favoring the ankle, and he eventually gets out of the ring and is helped to the back by Doc Samson. So, guys, like I said, this match was awesome. They definitely sorry, you know it in the chat saying fact check for me, might as well ask the Moth. And also Matthews, Murphy, who can tell the redheads apart. I mean, they're literally the same person. But as I was saying, this match was awesome. I think it was arguably match of the night. They gave them a lot of time. These two guys can go. They have very similar styles. So I definitely loved it. I love the storytelling. Look, it was the obvious storytelling of guy returns from injury. He's going to favor the injury, and then the bad guy's going to attack it, and all of that stuff. And yeah, but I thought they played it right. I enjoyed the fact that Cole was actually going to give up at one point. Usually you just see these guys battle back and, be like, no, I'm going to push through the pain. Cole's just like, at a certain point, he's like, nah, fuck this. I'm out. He was done. And it was only Matthews calling him a bitch that eventually got Cole back into the ring. And it did allow him to win. And we did see some more of the old Adam Cole. So I did like the storytelling a lot. And I did like, even after that, the ankle continued to plague him. He eventually fought through it, Cole, and won the match. But, a lot of times you get a spot where the guy is just able to battle through the pain no matter what and wins the match. Instead, they continued that match for another few minutes, and there were multiple points of the match where the ankle could have cost Cole, but it ended up not doing so. And now, obviously, we have the challenge by Malachi Black as we move towards this full gear match with MJF. And the challenge MJF laid out of the first man who can get to 3 wins. Is it Cole or Roddy? So Cole's got his first one under his belt, and it looks like he's got a second one lined up. I don't know if Roddy has had any matches on Collision or Rampage or whatever. They didn't really mention if he's got one yet. But as we said last week, I think this is moving towards Cole and Roddy ending up facing off with each other to have to get that 3rd win. And then I imagine Cole will get the W, and that causes Roddy and the Undisputed Kingdom to turn on him finally and separates them out and allows them to go heel again while keeping Cole face. Okay, moving on here. We then went backstage with Private Party as Christopher Daniels has asked for a little bit of their time. And CD wanted this time because he wanted to tell them about how both he and Frankie Kazarian a while back were in the same position that Private Party were in, where the two of them were like, okay, I think they mentioned if we lose at all, we will split up. But they did end up in the position where if they lost a tag team championship match against the Young Bucks, that they would be forced to split up. And CD was the one who let Frankie down. And after that, he says their relationship changed to the point where Frankie's not even here anymore. If I'm not mistaken, he is in Impact, but that is James's department, CNA. I'm like 50% sure he's there because I think he showed up on NXT as a part of the talent exchange. But I'm not sure if he's since left or not. Anyway, CD just wants to make sure that Private Party knows what they're getting into, because this is indeed the Young Bucks, and they will do anything and everything that they can in order to keep what they have. Both Zay and Quen tell them not to sweat, that they've got this, and history won't be repeating itself. Okay. We then went to commercial and came back, and Adam Cole was backstage getting his ankle worked on with the Undisputed Kingdom there. And it is at this time, after he thanks Buddy for the match and says that it appears Malachi has now called him out. But the main focus for him is still on MJF. Look, honestly, the beginning of this was a very generic, I'm going to get you MJF promo. But Cole did say some interesting things in that he said that him and Max were never going to work out because guys like them can never be friends. He knew eventually Max was going to turn on him, or he was going to turn on Max. But it was more likely to him that Max would be the guy to betray him, because look what he did to guys like Wardlow, Sammy Guevara, and Daniel Garcia. So Cole decided to get him first, which is honestly fair. And admits that maybe they did cross a line in the process, but it was only because he felt that he needed to take MJF out. MJF doesn't care about AEW or the locker room, while Cole and the rest of the guys do. And at Full Gear, he or us, he says us, pointing at Roderick Strong, will take care of MJF once and for all. It was a little generic, this promo, but I did like it. And they are still attempting to reason out Adam Cole being a face here, despite his misdeeds when he initially turned on MJF. They're doing a pretty good job of it, I think. Obviously, they're in a very difficult spot, but I think Cole, at least being reasonable enough to admit that he was in the wrong when he did that, or maybe he did the wrong thing for the right reasons, I think is a good way to go about this. Because you can't just be like, oh, no, we were totally in the right doing this. You clearly weren't, dude. I mean, you attacked the guy not for no reason. Obviously, we have one now, but you betrayed the guy, you cost him his title, and then, or maybe you didn't even really, I guess, cost him his title. No, he didn't. I was there. I should remember that. But he attacked him after losing his title and put him on the shelf for quite a while. So there's the back and forth of, well, you shouldn't have done that, but explaining it these type of ways, as you are now a face, I can kind of see why you did. So you're gonna have to do a little wrestling logic there, but it is what it is. Hopping into the chat saying the last sighting he has of Frankie Kazarian was also in Impact, but that was a while back. Yeah, I agree. Like I just Impact's a funny place. Excuse me, because people don't always necessarily work on long-term contracts there. They could pop up for like 3 months and then end up leaving and go back and work in the indies and then pop up again later. So he was definitely there for a little bit. He might just be back on the independent scene now. But yeah. All right. Moving on from this, we then went back outside, this time to the stage where Kyle Fletcher and that Cardi piece of shit Don Callis had a few things to say. And Fletcher came out saying that he is a man of his word, and he has come out in person to call out and face Will Ospreay. So Fletcher tries to introduce Will, and he obviously doesn't come out. And then Kyle starts saying he's just as disappointed as everyone else that Will isn't there. And as Fletcher keeps talking, the Aussie open music then hits, and it was great to hear that theme. I absolutely love it. And Mark Davis actually comes out, and we haven't seen Mark Davis in a while. He's been injured for almost a year now, maybe more. And good to see him. He looks like he's in pretty good shape. And this very much surprised Fletcher. But at the same time, Fletcher was very happy to see him and says, hey, it's good to see you, dude, and tries to give him a hug, but Davis holds him back. And he calls out Fletcher for calling Will out when he knows that Ospreay's at home laying up in a bed because of what Kyle did. Davis said that he can't believe Kyle did that to someone they called a brother, but Fletcher counters that Ospreay never cared about either of them, and it was Don Callis who actually opened up his eyes to that. However, being a good friend, Kyle never forgot Davis and made sure that there would be a spot for him in the family, as both he and Don open their arms, looking to welcome Mark into the Don Callis family. Davis asks, family? Why would I go to a family when we had a united empire? And you gave all of that up for this. And he starts to walk away from Fletcher. But Kyle says that before Davis makes his final choice, he should know that Kyle clearly has no problem with cutting away the past. So I have been curious about what's going to happen with Mark Davis upon his return. And we have been speculating for a while now when he would come back, because we haven't really been sure. The extent of his injury has been kept pretty quiet, and the timing of his return has been kept quiet as well. So I don't even know if he's been cleared while he's here. It's possible, but I honestly have no idea. So his appearance was surprising, not just to Kyle, but to me as well. But I think a good spot if he's healthy, because now we have the will he, won't he question with Davis. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because I think a lot of us thought that Davis would make his grand return, United Empire would get back together, and they would be the ones taking on the Don Callis family. But instead, Fletcher has now turned, and now it's Will against Fletcher and the whole rest of the family, Takeshita, Ocha, and Cage. And now we throw Davis back into the mix. So we'll see how this all plays out. A lot of moving parts there. But I'm interested to see where all this goes with Davis now that he's hopefully back, at least hopefully for the long term, although we'll see what's up with his injury. Moving on from that, we went to another backstage interview. I wrote promo there, but it was an interview with Hangman Adam Page. Renee asked Page what his response was to Jay White after Jay said that he was offering Hangman redemption at their match at Full Gear. Hangman brings up beating White in the title tournament, saying it doesn't matter how much White wants to blame Christian for his loss, it was still Hangman who was the one who beat him and then ended up putting him on the shelf. And then White stayed away for 3 months, returning only to attack Hangman instead of righting the proper wrong and thereby making a mistake. Hangman says that there's no redemption for either of them, and then says that he does know how Jay White's going to come at him, attacking his leg with knee breakers and dragon screw leg whips and so on and so forth. But does Jay know how Page is going to attack him? Will he knock him out again? Will he break his ankle again? Will he attack Jay's friends? Will he burn down Jay's house? But however it is that Hangman goes after Jay, all Jay knows is to be, when it's all said and done, White is the one who's going to be left behind in the dust, just like everybody else. Good stuff from Hangman there. I mean, he's been dark and awesome, and this has been a great heel run. So I'm really excited for that match. And we'll see how that feud continues on. I still say White needs to beat him again, because I think Hangman needs to continue further down into his madness, and another loss, especially a high-profile one, to somebody he has a lot of trouble beating and has obviously never beaten clean. I think that would really, really do wonders for Hangman. Oof. Burning through the show. I swear it's a lot better than me just talking about it like this. But after this, we went back into the ring. We actually had a really cool shot before we went to commercial of, the Blackpool Combat Club coming out of their locker room or wherever they were through the hallways one by one past the cameraman. That is a very brave cameraman or woman. Shout out to them. And we then eventually got Moxley and Shafir as the last two, and the cameraman, backed up as they were walking down the hall. And then eventually we got back from commercial and went to the corridor as the Blackpool Combat Club came out through the crowd and then went into the ring. So quickly into the comments before I get that started. Could it be Hangman and Swerve put aside their beef to handle the Hurt business? Because I'm just not going to call them anything. Was it Hurt Syndicate, I guess? That's a good question. I don't think so. At least that's not what I'm reading at the moment. Swerve is obviously going to need help with them. I don't know where he's going to get the help, but he is going to need the help. But I just don't see these guys ever really teaming up. They fucking hate each other. I mean, the dude burned down, Hangman burned down Swerve's house. So getting to a level where you can forgive somebody else, even in wrestling, to team up, I don't know. And just at the moment, Hangman has no involvement with the Hurt Syndicate. There's really no reason right now to get him involved either. The only reason I think would be that Hangman maybe tries to step to one of them and be like, no, dude, like he's the guy I beat down. You don't get to take him out. I get to take him out. And then that causes problems with them. But that feels like it would lead more to a triple threat than a tag match anyway, but who knows? Anyway, as I was saying, back to the Blackpool Combat Club. They got into the ring. Moxley starts off by saying he doesn't expect Orange Cassidy or anybody else to understand what is going on right now, but soon everyone will understand. He then says that Orange was not the one that challenged him for the title. Rather, it was the other way around. He challenged Orange for the title last week when he broke Chuck Taylor's neck and removed that distraction from his life. Moxley is disappointed that Orange continually has said that he is not a leader, when that's not the guy Moxley faced over and over again and came to respect. Instead, Orange has been milling around, wasting his potential, like everyone else who has been growing content and fat on success here in AEW. But Moxley still calls Orange a cool customer, and then he begins to mutter that Orange thinks nobody's going to get hurt, and we shall see about that. And then Mox goes over to Claudio and nudges him, and Claudio's like, what the hell? And he nudges him again, and he points at Wheeler. And then very quickly, Pac and Shafir get Wheeler on his knees while Claudio hops out of the ring to grab the chair, and they wrap the chair around Wheeler's neck. It looks like that once again, the BCC is going to break the neck of somebody that Orange has a connection to. Obviously, there's all that history there with Yuta being in the best friends, but there was a bit of betrayal. And even then, I think you can kind of still feel like Orange has a little bit of a connection to Wheeler. And he must, because the plan works, and Orange comes running out in order to save Yuta. However, when he takes down Moxley, Orange is quickly swarmed as Shafir brings Yuta into the corner, takes the chair off, and grabs him by the shirt. And he's like, that had to happen. You know why it had to happen. Get up and beat the shit out of him. So Wheeler gets up and then starts kicking Orange's shit in. And eventually the Dark Order then comes down to try to even things up. But they're all still bruised up, mattered from their previous encounters with the BCC. So the BCC is able to take control. Claudio and Pac then eventually get Orange down on the outside, and they wrap his neck in the chair and are going to try to break his neck. But out of nowhere, motherfucking Darby Allin comes down from the ceiling like he's Sting and just jumps Claudio from behind, jumps on his neck, and just starts punching him in the head repeatedly. Eventually, Claudio tosses him off onto the table, and because they were trying to do the table spot and AEW can't figure out their tables, the table just immediately broke. So then Darby tried to jump back over it and keep fighting as Alex Reynolds was trying to take the hook off at Darby because he still hadn't gotten it off yet. Luckily, they took that off TV. Eventually, they were able to get the spot right where Claudio took Darby and threw him into what was left of the table, and then the whole thing collapsed. And as this happened, Top Flight, Daniel Garcia, and Private Party all hit the ring, and eventually the BCC and the fight was pushed back into the crowd as Orange actually hit an orange punch onto Moxley, and everyone started pushing out. However, it was right at this time when the music hit right at this time as it was going into the crowd, that the music of the Young Bucks hit, and they decided it was there and then that they wanted to challenge Private Party for the tag titles. So those guys were forced to stay behind and face the EVPs in their tag title match. this is interesting. Obviously, we got like kind of the same brawl that we've been getting for the last few weeks, but it did include two big things. Obviously, one, the return of Darby Allin, and he came down from the rafters, which is pretty cool. We haven't seen Darby. We don't know why we haven't seen Darby. I guess this is a good enough time to bring him back. I think it would have been cooler at maybe a bigger show, but this was a themed Dynamite, and they do tend to pull out all the stops for these types of shows, as we obviously saw later. So I'm not really surprised now that I think about it that he came back. Didn't look great in his return. Guy got put through a table kind of twice, but he's back, and coming down from the rafters is an awesome moment. So, yeah, Tony, trust me, Tony Schiavone will tell you. But it was still pretty cool. The other thing I thought was of note was Moxley's promo, just actually in and of its whole, really. He continues, obviously to say that nobody gets what we're doing right now, but soon they'll understand. But I think there's a lot more context to that. I guess we'll have to talk about that more later, but reading it back, it just becomes, I think, more important. And obviously, I think attacking Yuta is interesting, or at least feigning to attack Yuta, because commentary was pretty convinced Moxley would have done it. And I think Moxley is at a point where he is willing to sacrifice his people in order to get the job done. And Wheeler is not only lowest, or I guess highest on the totem pole. Fun fact, kids, the lower you are on the totem pole in actual, totem pole history, the better you are, more important you are, the higher you are, the less important you are. So say it right. So anyway, yeah, Yuta is highest on the totem pole, but I do think it was more of just a situational thing where if Orange was close to Claudio, Moxley would be willing to take Claudio out real quick. But obviously the situation and the writing of the situation dictated Wheeler, and that's probably why he's still there and why, and working with Orange and everything. It all comes together very nicely there. But very interesting that Mox is willing to sacrifice his own people. And I think we kind of got a glimpse into how Moxley feels about the current state of AEW and why he is doing what he's doing, because he sees everyone getting, as he put it, content and fat on success and complacent, that it's not the same AEW when everybody got there and they were hungry and they were striving to make the things work, because if they didn't, then this company would have succeeded and they would have had nowhere else to go. And I think what we're kind of starting to see from Moxley is he's trying to get everybody back to that. And in order to do so, I guess he feels the way to do it is trim the fat and, have everybody leave behind what he called distractions in order to want to claw your way to the top. The only reason Orange wants a piece of Moxley right now is because Mox took out Chuck Taylor. And before that, Orange didn't have any motivation to face Moxley. Orange doesn't want the title, but Moxley knows that Orange is one of the best in the company. And he's more willing, it seems, to Mox to mill about and hang out with his friends, hang out with Chuck, hang out with the conglomeration, fight these sort of easier battles. And I know James called it a side quest before, but Moxley sees it more as just Orange being lazy and complacent when he can be so much more. And we have seen people within the last few weeks telling Orange this, but in a much nicer way. Moxley instead went right for the throat, I guess pun slightly intended, and forced Orange to become the killer, I guess, or at least the motivated person at minimum that Moxley wants Orange to be, because he thinks, and he's probably right, a motivated Orange makes for a better AEW. So I think that maybe I'm reading a little too much into this, but I think we got a lot from Moxley here. If you kind of read in between the lines, why he's doing this in its totality, we don't really know yet. Who he's doing this for, whether it's somebody above him or it's just his own idea, we don't know that yet either. But I think we did get a glimpse into the ideas and the mindset of Jon Moxley through this promo, and it was very, very interesting. Wild theory, he's answering to Tony. That is my wild theory. He's answering to Tony Khan, and because maybe it was after the Bucks attacked Tony Khan, and maybe it's a combination of that and, Tony getting worried about the ratings or some bullshit where that's why you keep doing that. I forgot to plug my other laptop in. Maybe Tony getting worried about the ratings, where Tony wants to get back to the old AEW when everybody was hungry and wanted to be on top and wanted to be this new company, fresh company, and everyone's gotten complacent. So maybe that's my crazy theory, tinfoil hat theory, that it's Tony Khan behind Moxley and with everything that's going on right now. But for now, it seems like it's just Moxley, and we'll know in the future. In the comments, real quick, it's saying he's disappointed Yuta wasn't sacrificed for the cause. He might be. I won't be surprised if at some point somebody will be sacrificed. Maybe it might not be Yuta now that it's been teased, but I can see one of them being sacrificed for the greater good. The greater good. Saying maybe AEW can receive table trading from catering. Maybe at some point. Yeah, that is definitely going to be on Botchamania. I could tell you that. That was a real I am the table and I am not the table at the same time. So I don't know how Matthew's going to make that work. And once again, congrats to him to 500 episodes, but I imagine he will. And they were also jumping ahead a little bit, but saying RIP to Young Buck producer boy Brandon's baiting hand. Yeah, good old Brandon Cutler. Yeah, that's gonna be rough for a couple of weeks. Sorry to Brandon Cutler. Give me 2 seconds, guys, while I plug this in. Otherwise, I won't be able to do the show. All right, and we are back. Anyway, speaking of the Young Bucks, as I mentioned, they came out at the end of this whole fracas in order to have their match, their tag title match with Private Party, while Private Party was a little distracted. Good move by them, honestly. Bit of head games, and I think that kind of played into what CD was saying before, that the Bucks were willing to do anything in order to keep their titles. And when better to have your match than when your opponents are distracted by their friends getting the shit kicked out of them. So anyway, after a few minutes into this match, Matthew was sent into the timekeeper's area, and he was able to use that opportunity. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry, like I mentioned, I'm still battling this cough. Surprised that hasn't happened more tonight. Sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, Matthew was thrown into the timekeeper's area and used that opportunity to grab the ring bell. And while the referee was distracted by Nicholas, Matthew went to hit Isaiah with it, but Isaiah was able to duck it, and then Quen appeared behind Matthew to take it. However, when Quen took it and tried to hit Matthew, Matthew ducked it himself, and then Quen accidentally cracked Isaiah in the head with it and split Cassidy's head open. So Cassidy was pretty out of it for a lot of this match. He was bleeding. Almost any time he battled back to get up and try to get a tag, he got cracked in the head again, usually by a super kick, and it kept him down for a good chunk of the match. Later in the match, Zay had made a bit of a comeback, but he was down again, and Quen was going back and forth, hitting a couple of big moves on the outside, but as he went for a fourth one back on Nicholas on the far side of the ring, I guess the announcer table side of the ring, Matthew recovered and grabbed his foot, and Nicholas came over and hit him with a big knee, and then Matthew got Quen up on his shoulders, and they kind of did like a, the Nick Jackson signature see ya kick into a Doomsday device as Matthew flipped Quen off of his shoulders. They then dragged Quen's body up to the top of the ramp and left him there, and that was a little curious. But as they went back into the ring, they were able to distract the referee, who obviously is Rick Knox, and it is BTE kayfabe that Rick Knox is on the take from the Bucks. So Okada was able to sneak out through the tunnel and hit a quick tombstone pile driver on the ramp to Quen, seemingly taking him out of the rest of the match. The Bucks then decide to get a little creative, and they hit a gin and juice of their own onto Isaiah, but Cassidy kicks out. So then there's a super kick party, and Cassidy kicks out again, and then they go for the EVP trigger, and Cassidy just collapses. So they pick him up again, and when they go for this EVP trigger, Cassidy ducks it and attempts to pin Matthew with the roll-up, and Matthew is able to kick out. They then get Isaiah for the TK driver, and once again, Isaiah is able to wiggle out of this, sending Matthew into Nicholas, who's on the outside, rolling up Matthew again, and Matthew kicks out once again. But as Matthew kicks out, he sends Isaiah towards the ropes, and Nicholas is able to hit an enziguri, and then they are finally able to hit the EVP trigger, the Bucks are, and again, Isaiah kicks out. Nicholas then decides to get real cheeky, and he throws Isaiah into the second rope, facing outwards, and hits a V trigger onto Isaiah. And Matthew then gets Isaiah for a one-winged angel, which he hits, but then Quen comes out of fucking nowhere to break up the pin. And you know what? I know you were talking about that earlier in the chat before I got on. I will definitely go back to your comments. Give me a minute. Nicholas is pissed, and he tosses Quen out of the ring. And Matthew gets Isaiah for another TK driver while Nicholas heads up top. But I think it was a TK driver. They went into the corner. So it might have been an indie taker. I don't know. Anyway, either way, Zay is able to once again counter the pile driver position, and he sent Matthew into the ropes, knocking Nicholas down. Matthew is then sent outside of the ring, and Private Party get their shit back together and get back in and hit the gin and juice onto Nicholas and finally win the AEW World Tag Team Championships. After the match, Knox had awarded Zay and Quen the titles, but the Bucks angrily come back over and take the titles away from them before thrusting them back into the hands of Private Party and giving them a bit of a tap on the shoulder before leaving, showing a little bit of respect for the new champs. First of all, this match was early. It's early. Sorry, I'm reading things here. It was awesome. It was great. It was a tag team wrestling match very early in this match, which is actually where I was going with that. Obviously, as you know, saying you deserve it as a overused cheap chant, but Private Party earned by sticking around and working it out. And working their way up. So it was great. And he's right. These guys really do deserve it. They have been there since day one, and they finally got the titles after 5 years. And, you know, they've gone through a lot. Not only were they very young when they first got to AEW, when they were given that big win over the Bucks, but after that, they were working their way up slowly, being in some high-profile matches, not winning all of them because they were young, they were prospects, and that's how AEW handled these guys, which I do like. But then Quen got hurt for a long time. Isaiah got hurt for a while. Quen got hurt again. They've finally been back together for the last, I don't know, let's say 6 months or so. And they're hitting their stride again. And after that, their previous loss, I think it was on the pay-per-view, where Amazing Greg, shout out to him, called them out, and they were like, you guys get it more serious. We've seen them being a little more serious, and I've enjoyed the slight character shift. They're still having a lot of fun, but I think the character shift is working for them, and obviously it has led them to the tag team titles. So I'm so happy for them. I'm so happy this match was an absolute banger. This was actually, I said the Cole Buddy match might have been match of the night, but I think this definitely was. This was the most enthralling. The false finishes were great. Isaiah looked like an absolute stud in this, kicking out of all of those moves, especially since he was the one to make the challenge where they would have lost if they would have lost. Private Party would have had to break up. So him wanting to keep the team together that badly that he was able to kick out of all of those big time moves was absolutely great. So do me a favor and not and make me not have to scroll all the way back up. saying that the Young Bucks had that great Easter egg V-trigger and one Winged Angel back-to-back. It appears Kenny is on his way back. And we've gotten some hints about that, not really in AEW. This is the first real tease for Kenny's return here on the show, but we've heard Kota Ibushi saying a few things. I think it was announced Kenny will be showing up in New Japan at some point in the near future. That was announced, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago. So didn't say he was wrestling, just said he was making an appearance. So Kenny is looking like he's on his way back, and that is more than exciting, obviously. It's great that Kenny is in great health and that he is able to come back. And I think the timing works out really well with everything going on with the storyline. I think it works out perfectly. And Kenny, I think, should be and needs to be a big part of the storyline with Moxley and the Bucks and whatever the hell is going on with the Bucks. We'll get to that in a few. But I'm glad we got this tease, because there's no way the Bucks would just do it without there being a reason. And because they clearly haven't in a while. So the fact that they did it, I think, is a very good sign that he's on his way back. And hooray. All right. After this match, we headed backstage for a interview with Jamie Hayter and Penelope Ford under the pretense that there would be no physicality. So Penelope starts things off by saying it seems like everyone has forgotten that she's been in AEW since day one and how much she's gone through for this company, like the amount of time she has bled for this company, including going through a plate glass window and getting stakes stuck in her forehead. And she's got a point. We talk about a lot of these women's hardcore matches that have happened in AEW. And I feel like the ones with her and the Bunny sometimes get forgotten, or at least maybe not forgotten, but people do kind of forget that they were in them sometimes. I think a lot of people are usually kind of focused on Anna Jay and Ty Conti, or I think they were also in one of the ones with Willow and Statlander or somebody like they've been in a couple of them together, and the Bunny and Penelope have gone ape shit in those matches in a good way. So I think she's got a bit of a point pointing that out to us. And then she mentions that Jamie came along and stole an opportunity from her as she made her return. Jamie interrupts, asking about stolen opportunities when it was Penelope who stole one from her 2 years ago. Not really sure what she was referring to. Maybe, I don't think Penelope was. Oh, Penelope might have been the one who injured her shoulder. Don't quote me on that, but it would make the most sense. I genuinely don't remember what she was referring. Anyway, Jamie then says that Penelope is lucky Tony Khan guaranteed her no physicality this week, but next week, Jamie is going to mop the floor with her. So, nice little teaser as we head to their match next week on Dynamite. Yes, thank you. It was Britt and Rosa. Yeah, they had a great. They had so many good hardcore matches. I'm not even sure which ones they were in, because they had some great one-on-one ones, and then I think they had a couple of great tag ones as well. So, yeah, like I said, a lot of great hardcore matches in the women's division in AEW, and it's awesome to see. They've been letting these women go occasionally, and when they do, they always come through. And now these women are getting a lot more time, and you see how much talent there is in that division. And as long as Tony keeps giving them the time they deserve, they're going to continue to perform and perform well. Okay. After this, we had a quick video package for Sir Strickland and Shelton Benjamin, which was the main event tonight. And then we had another promo on the stage, this time from the Learning Tree and his branches being the Bad Apple Brian Keith and the Big Redwood Big Bill. So, hi guys. Jericho says that in a ladder match that Dave Meltzer gave 4 stars, he became a 2-time Ring of Honor champion, just like Jay Briscoe, and fulfilled the prophecy of him becoming the Nueve, which is still a shitty nickname. And obviously, he couldn't have done that without the Bad Apple, Big Bill, and all of his branches. Jericho says that much like he did with his new movie and AEW, no offense to Moxley, he is going to take Ring of Honor to new heights because he is Chris Jericho, and you should never underestimate him. And then Brian Keith came in with a great line, just never underestimate Chris Jericho, you dumbasses. which got a bit of a pop out of me. Maybe I've been watching too much that 70s show clips lately, but Dumbasses will always get a good pop out of me. And it was just great delivery. So great job out of him. And then Jericho repeats that, telling everyone to put their seats back and relax, as he says once again that he will take Ring of Honor to new heights that no one ever thought possible before. I'm curious to see if this relates to the rumored television show that Ring of Honor may finally be getting over on True TV. If that's true, we think we kind of talked about this last week. Tony Khan has a tried and true method. Put the title on Chris Jericho. People that, he is a proven commodity. People know who he is. People will go watch him on True TV, and it'll draw eyeballs to Ring of Honor. So it sucks that Briscoe lost the title, and yeah, it just sucks that he lost the title. But if this is the direction and it works, I think we'll all look back on it and probably say, yeah, it was kind of annoying Briscoe lost the title at the time, but hey, Ring of Honor has had this TV deal for a while now, and they're doing good numbers. It very clearly worked out in the way Tony Khan wanted. But we'll see. We'll get there at some point. We then went to a quick video package for Mariah May and Anna Jay because they have a women's title match coming up very shortly. I think it's on, I almost said Clash of the Champions. Whatever they call that now. But too much WCW. Anyway, after that, we went to a very interesting segment as we found Marvez backstage trying to get a word in with the Bucks after their loss. However, Jack Perry is there outside the locker room and drives Marvez off as he tries to go into their locker room himself, saying it's a bad time. However, Daniel Garcia then comes up to Perry and gets in his face, asking where Perry was during the brawl with the BCC, asking if he was watching his boys lose the title, and then starting to hit Perry's TNT Championship, saying he's going to lose his next. Perry steps to Garcia, and Garcia grabs him by the shirt and puts him right into the wall. And Garcia tells him that he's sick and tired of entitled pieces of trash walking around doing whatever they want. And when Perry pushes back, asking Garcia if he thinks he's special, Garcia shoves him back in the wall again and asks him the same thing. Perry then smirks and says that Garcia used to dance for him too. So Garcia tosses him aside and tells Perry to get out of his face. Jack then picks up his title, walks back over to the Elite's locker room, gives it a knock, and goes in. And we see this very chaotic scene of Matthew and Nicholas trying to pull a bunch of papers out of a bunch of boxes that are strewn about the room. Okada's just standing there doing fuck all because it's Okada and he's too cool to do any of that. And Brandon Cutler attempting to shred all these documents, complaining that the shredder is too slow. Perry's very confused, and Matthew looks up at him and he goes, "We need to talk. You got to close the door." So Perry shoves the camera out of the room and closes the door, ending the segment. So very, very curious to see what that's about. I will talk about it more when we have the last Bucks segment, but that laid some interesting groundwork that I'll get to in a few minutes. Want to go to the comments, say hello to Hunter Iggy. Welcome back, Hunter. It's good to see you, my man. Appreciate you being here, even though I'm riding solo tonight. If you didn't see the beginning, James is at the World Series right now at the Yankee game. I feel like something big happened because my phone just exploded in my pocket. So anyway, go Dodgers. And it's saying, poor Marv just trying to do his job. No respect, I tell you. No respect. Yeah, I mean, poor guy. It's funny. I've been saying this on the pod for a while now. I've been reading the Wrestler Observer Rewinds recently, and Marvez's name popped up. I didn't realize, he was a very big, sports reporter back in the day. The dude's got some serious creds, and they treat him like shit. So, although I will give the Bucks this. They don't necessarily treat him like shit. They don't want to talk to him a lot, but they don't really threaten him or go after him or stuff. Jack does, but the Bucks themselves tend to treat him with at least a modicum of respect. Some people do, but the Bucks tend to be pretty decent with the interviewers, especially Renee. But I think part of that's because they're afraid of Mox, and part of that is they've been the EVPs lately, and they do want to try to keep their employees a little bit happy. So right, nope, another comment. I might need a new phone because you said it exploded. Yeah, well, I didn't actually blow up, but physically, not literally. It's okay, but yeah, it just vibrated a lot. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that the Yankees did something. Hopefully, they lost. It'd be nice. And, do you know what? Asking how much paperwork do wrestlers have? That's a good question. I mean, obviously they have their contracts and stuff, but I guess because it depends. They're independent contractors, and I imagine some of them, like the Bucks, probably have multiple contracts because they're sort of EVPs, and that's really a name only. But it didn't used to be. I don't know if Christopher Daniels probably has multiple stuff because he's now an on-air talent, but he's also doing backstage work. So it's probably a lot. And then I imagine those taxes are a disaster because they're independent contractors and like getting 1099s and stuff. Very interesting question from Hunter Iggy. What is my opinion or my thoughts on this new WWE ID thing? So I've only read so much about it. The basic premise is, for those of you who don't understand, and I'm sure we will talk about this more in the coming weeks when there's a more. Oh, that's actually having. I'll get that back to that in a second. Anyway, to this WWE ID thing, we will be discussing it more as more people will be on the show and probably have other opinions. But my first read for it was that I don't know if it's great. For those of you who don't know, WWE is basically setting up a system where people can be like kind of contracted to WWE as they move up through the indie scene, so that when they are ready, they can just slide right into WWE, most likely NXT, without really a tryout or something, as they're already contracted. But they're allowed to work the independents and discover new styles and move around and stuff. And it's weird. I saw a couple of sources saying that they think it could hurt the indie scene the way the NXT UK did, where they would be snatching up maybe not just good prospects, but some of the bigger name indie talent as well, so that they could use that, that indie talent, have them come in, even if it's like for, a brief show or something, and work a few dates in NXT or whatever it is. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it works. If it actually does happen, I would wonder if there's gonna be lawsuits or something to prevent it. But I would hope that what happened to to the UK indie scene when NXT UK started doesn't happen here. Because for those of you who don't know about that, Triple H went over, grabbed all of the big time indie UK wrestlers and created NXT UK, and it just left places like ICW and Rev Pro just barren because those people were locked into exclusive contracts. A lot of the people who would work their shows all the time, like Mustache Mountain and Pete Dunne. Well, Pete Dunne was technically in Mustache Mountain, I guess. And a lot of the guys who were like in the original tournament and stuff like that. So Joseph Connors, like dudes like that. So it could hurt. It could also just create an absolute fucking mess of booking because, if you got a WWE guy, I highly doubt that they're going to be allowed to lose to somebody, who's not who's not a WWE guy. Or if you have two WWE guys, you have to call the office and be like, okay, which one of these two guys can go over? And it would kind of just create this predictable mess, I would imagine, of, oh, well, this is a WWE ID guy. He's clearly going to win this match. And yeah, the match could be good, but it would still kind of suck to just be like, okay, this guy's clearly going to win because he's in WWE. This guy's clearly going to win because he's in WWE. Like, it would be very annoying. And I imagine, honestly, if I was a booker, I wouldn't want to book, I wouldn't want to book those people if I ran my own indie, just because it would be such a pain in the ass. And I would be burying my own talent probably all of the time. So I don't know. I don't like it, and I'm making a good crack here. Trying to control the indie scene would make Vince proud, and that's I guess he's got a point. But I get the intent for WWE, control the pipeline of the talent, and obviously that's very helpful for them. But I think in the process it might really hurt the indie scene, and I don't think I would want to see it that much. So those are my early thoughts. I think as I read up on it more and we hear more about it, they might change, but we'll see what happens. Back to it's a paperwork comments. He said maybe the Young Bucks funnel funds from AEW and that's why they're shredding. Maybe. I think this. We'll get there. Let me get back to the part where they leave, and we'll talk about that. Anyway, after the whole shredding situation, we got to our next match, which is the much hyped Kris Statlander versus Kamille match. Let me say this: maybe it was just me, and maybe because I was just kind of scrambling to get some stuff in order for the show, which clearly didn't go very well because I came on 20 minutes late. But I felt like a lot of this match was in commercial. So I'm just going to jump right out and say this is a match I need to rewatch. And frankly, I might have to take to the high seas to watch it because if you watch it on the TBS app, it cuts off the picture-in-pictures. So I feel like in totality, this match was maybe 4 minutes of actual full screen time, which, I mean, I'll lead into the end here because when I finally picked my head up, I got to Statlander going up for the 450 splash and missing it as Kamille rolled out of the way. Statlander went face first into the mat. Kamille took advantage, got Statlander into the torture rack, and then went in before hitting the power bomb. And Statlander barely kicked out. Kamille then got Stat up for a tombstone, but Stat was able to reverse it, switch her grip, and hit this Wednesday Night Fever for the win. I'll then jump after the match. Frustrated Mercedes she got into the ring and clocked Statlander in the back of the head with the title, knocking her out. She then grabbed the mic and told Kamille to get into the back, just screaming at her to get into the back, mentioning that if you want something right, you got to do it yourself. And then she picked up Statlander's unconscious head and held her title next to it before letting it bounce back off of the mat. And the end was awesome. And it, I think, very obviously sets up a TBS title shot for Statlander. But this felt like, an older women's match where they just, I guess they got the time, but a lot of it was in picture-in-picture, and it just didn't hit as much as I wanted it to. I was very excited about this match. This was billed as a match between two powerhouses, and maybe, like I said, maybe I was just distracted, but I feel like I didn't see any of this. So I would love to give an opinion on it. I'm happy Stat won, but I wish I got more out of it. Excuse me. It's saying that the match wasn't great, but it was what it was. And yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like I probably would have loved it just because I love Statlander. And Kamille is growing on me. But outside of the last 2 weeks, I don't think we've seen all of what she can do in the ring. So I don't really know how good she is in her totality. What I saw last week against Aminata was good. And that's why I was so excited to see what she could do against somebody how she could do against somebody like Statlander, who I know is very good in the ring and is very good at working with other powerhouse women. I mean, look at her matches with Willow. So I was really excited about this match. And the fact that, what happened with the commercial and everything, I'm a little disappointed in its presentation, I think I would say, first and foremost. So I'm going to try to go back and watch it, but like I said, it might be a little difficult. Ooh, I can hear the voice starting to go. We're going to have to wrap up soon. Luckily, we're towards the end. After that, we went to a quick promo package for the Christian Cage and the Patriarchy and their run-ins recently with Kip Sabian, and that led into a backstage promo from the group, Kip Sabian included. Christian says that there has been a misunderstanding between himself and Hook and everything that went down with Taz. And he then invites Hook to come to the ring next week so that they can discuss what happened the prior week, where Christian hit a kill switch onto his contract case and basically knocked Hook the fuck out, and then called him Tyler. So Tyler. After that, we went to another backstage interview, this time with the conglomeration. This was Briscoe, Cool Kyle, and my friend the Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii, still hanging out there. Mentioning that for Stat and Kamille probably needed a longer match. And yeah, I agree. Like, he could have held this for a pay-per-view, and I think it would have been a good match, like an undercard match. But this was a bigger Dynamite. It's just like the presentation and I guess the slotting of the match too, where it was a bit shorter, a bit of a cool down spot, setting up for the main event. It was a bad spot for them. And like I said, this is kind of a spot where the women used to be on the card all of the time. But being this was a themed Dynamite, Fright Night, happy Halloween again, everybody. I can see why this kind of got pushed down the card. There was a lot of good stuff on this show. So it's more of a me thing. But yeah, it was too short. These two women needed more time. It's just a match I think deserved better. Anyway, back to the interview with the conglomeration. Renee asked Mark Briscoe about losing his Ring of Honor championship, considering how much Ring of Honor means to him. And obviously, he is livid over losing the title because of the disrespect Jericho brings to it and Ring of Honor. But the word of the day is instability, because Jericho must have a lot of that in his head since he mentioned Jay Briscoe's name once again earlier in the show. Mark then says that there's 3 of them and 3 members of the Learning Tree, and he asks Kyle if Kyle's ready for a fight. And Kyle says that those guys don't have any honor, so maybe they should fight without any. And Briscoe agrees, challenging the other trios to a fight without honor next week, saying that they're going to beat them with ladders and tables and chairs to the point where they're going to have to batten down the hatches, and then the conglomeration is going to beat them with the hatches. And then he just goes off crazy. Kyle follows, and then Ishii steps to the camera and says something and mumbles more like something in Japanese before he walks off following the other 2. So excited for that match. Match without honor. This is where I need James. He's the Ring of Honor guy, John Cena guy, Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer. He would probably know more what that match entails. Obviously, it's a very no DQ match, but we'll see how that all goes. Sorry about that. All right, back into the show. We now get to the point of the night where we are back with Marvez. Excuse me. As he is trying to get a word in again with the Bucks, this time as they're hightailing it out of the arena. They ignore Marvez politely as saying that they're leaving, but Christopher Daniels comes over and asks them where they're going, and Matthew says that this is now an unsafe work environment. And then he gets in CD's face and says that when they came back, they wanted to make AEW a better place, but nobody wanted to listen to them, so CD can get out of his face, and he will now be working from home. Matthew jumps in the car after Nick's already in the driver's seat, and the 2 of them leave. And as they leave, the camera turns around and finds poor Brandon Cutler hustling with a huge box in his hand, begging the Bucks not to leave without him or their shoes, but they're already gone. So Cutler then turns around to see the BCC round the corner, and CD tries to get between the BCC and Cutler, but Mox just grabs CD and puts him in a bit of a chokehold and keeps him back as the rest of the members go to work on Brandon. Shafir is able to get Cutler's wrist wrapped up in the chain that is she's using to carry the briefcase, again, presumably with the AEW Championship. We don't actually know if the title is in that briefcase, which is weird. And honestly, the briefcase does look a little small to be holding the title. But she's able to use that chain and holds Cutler's hand up against a forklift, and then Claudio grabs a hammer and slams it down on the Cutler's hand, presumably shattering the entire thing. CD is then finally able to get free and begs the BCC to retreat, getting over Cutler and trying to shield him. And they do so, the damage already being done. So this is interesting to me because obviously we saw the stuff with the shredding, right? And it seems to me like when the Bucks came back, they said they wanted to make AEW better. And Moxley is saying the same thing. But clearly the Bucks are not only not on the side of Moxley, they are very much afraid of him. They lost the titles and they bailed. Presumably because losing the titles lost them some power. And it's possible that upon coming back and attempting to change AEW for the better, at least in their view, they ran afoul of some people. And probably were also maybe trying to bring somebody else in, which is, again, leading me back to my Tony Khan theory that I mentioned earlier. If the Bucks came in and wanted to change AEW, and that involved taking out Tony Khan and perhaps replacing him with first themselves and then maybe somebody else. And I know the big name everybody is now thinking in their head that I say that is Shane McMahon, but perhaps the documents they're shredding would lead back to that. But it would only make sense that Tony responded. And Tony might be responding in the most radical opposite way. Now, am I thinking a lot? You know, Tony always says he won't be an on-screen guy. And do I think making himself a heel is a pretty crazy move? Yeah. But I think it could work, especially because if his response to the Bucks trying to take him out is trying to take out everybody else and try to give AEW the kick in the ass he thinks it needs to get it back to where it used to be, I think that makes sense. And then you have, you know, the EVPs reunite at some point maybe with, you know, some of these AEW originals, and they have to go to war against this corporate-backed BCC. It's a theory. It's an interesting one, I think, because, you know, it's mine. But I'm really curious. Like, I'm so much more curious to see where this is going now, because this isn't just Moxley anymore. This isn't just the BCC. Very clearly, in some way, shape, or form, the Elite is involved, or at least the Bucks are. Probably Okada too, although who knows how much he knows. Perry very clearly didn't know what was going on. He was very clearly confused by this document shredding. Matthew very clearly told him that they need to talk, implying that there is something Jack does not know. And there is a chance, I think, you know, James was saying it last week, and I think it would kind of fit in my theory that, you know, Jack does switch sides. So I don't know. I'm so excited to see where this all goes. I really hope they do it well and do it right, whatever it is. But the mystery, I think, is fun. And it's going to be a lot of speculating and a lot of theorizing. And I'm excited for all of that. Hey, you know, saying poor Brandon Cutler won't be able to wrestle for months, absolutely heartbreaking. It is. Him and Cole Cabana now can't wrestle on the pre-show anymore. Sad. I don't know if they're still doing dark matches. They were doing a bunch of them against Dark Order back when being the Dark Order was still kind of running. I don't know if they're doing it anymore. They didn't do it at Grand Slam, but I think they're trying to take more Ring of Honor stuff before the show than just doing the random dark matches. So who knows? All right, home stretch here as we got to the main event of the evening, which saw Swerve Strickland face off against Shelton Benjamin. Promise I'll only do that once. I will jump towards the end of the match here where Shelton was able to counter a flatliner by just straight up catching Swerve out of midair and then hit him with it looked like a DDT. It was pretty high angle DDT, but Swerve was able to kick out of that. Benjamin then went for a super kick, but Swerve beat him to it, hitting one of his own, and then hit a house call, but Shelton kicked out of that. And when he did, he was somehow able to stand up in a waist lock and after the kick out, which is insane to me. And he's able to do that, keep control, and hit a German suplex onto Swerve. sending Swerve into the corner. Shelton then followed that up with a high knee in the corner and returned to the middle of the ring in an attempt to build up some steam. But Swerve met him there, and this time is able to hit the flatliner, leaving both men down. Swerve eventually gets to his feet first and climbs up to the top of the ropes. I don't know what he was looking for there, but because Shelton was on the other side of the ring, but Shelton got up and was able to leap up to the top rope, meeting Swerve there. Swerve then managed to shimmy his way down onto the mat and got Shelton in position for the Liger Bomb, which he then hit before he returned to the top and hit a Swerve stomp for the win. Fairly quick finish, I thought. It was a little surprising. Maybe they were really far over at this point. Like, I think this match started at 9:58, so maybe they had to hurry the finish a little bit, but still an interesting finish. Anyway, after the match, Swerve and Nana are celebrating, and as they're doing so, MVP makes a phone call and tells someone that he needs them there now. The lights flicker, and then eventually all the lights go out except for the ones in the ring, and some music hits, and as we cut to the top of the stage, a man emerges from the dark, and there's the one, the only, Bobby Lashley, making his AEW debut. Lashley comes down to the ring, and he gets in a face-to-face with Swerve, and the two are staring each other down, neither man willing to make the first move until Shelton fakes like he's coming into the ring, causing Swerve to flinch, and when he does so, Lashley is able to take advantage and take Swerve down, with Benjamin quickly joining in on the beatdown, and MVP taking out Prince Nana with his cane. Lashley and Shelton then beat down Swerve until Lashley renders Swerve unconscious using the full Nelson, because I guess we can't call it the Hurt Lock anymore. And as Nana is forced to look on, and then Shelton just takes Nana's head off with a big boot. Eventually, the referee corps comes down, and they start trying to break everything up, and they're followed by security. So MVP fends off all the refs with his cane, while Lashley and Shelton take care of the security. After that's all over, MVP buries his cane into Swerve's chest, and he grabs a mic saying, "Guess who's back in business," as we go off the air. So first and foremost, great match out of both of these men. I expected nothing less than just absolute awesomeness from these two guys. They're just too good. They're too athletic. Shelton has looked amazing since he has gotten into AEW. I love that he's there. These are two great fresh matchups. And even though Swerve is not a smaller guy, he's still very athletic and is still able to bump his ass off for Shelton. Even in the loss, Shelton looked like $1 million. He countered so much of Swerve stuff. You know what? Just tell me what happened in the World Series, please, because I don't want to look. And I really can't. But Shelton looked great in the loss. Swerve made him look like $1 million, and vice versa. Shelton made Swerve look like $1 million. These two have had a match before 5 years ago. I think they mentioned. I think before AEW, or maybe like, oh no, Swerve hasn't been there in a while. So they have had a match at some point. But as they said, this is a much different Swerve, and I think we saw that tonight. And just the two guys look great. Swerve gets his win back. Awesome match. Moving on to the stuff that happened after, Bobby Lashley is in AEW. And I think this is something we've all kind of been predicting for a while now. And it's interesting. I've obviously been very excited about Shelton being there. The Dodgers won. Anyway, so... all right, hang on. Where's the thing? We don't go on tangents. Okay, I'm good now. You gotta understand, growing up in the Bronx as a Met fan is very, very difficult and creates a level of hatred unbeknownst to most sports fans. So I fucking hate the Yankees, and with the Mets being out, I could not have them win. I can never have the Yankees win. I get 27 rings shoved in my face enough. I do not need another more recent one shoved in my face. So I was more rooting. It's for my own sanity. It's not just because I'm a hater. It's just better for me mentally that the Yankees lose. Okay. Anyway, back to the match. Or at least Bobby Lashley's debut. I'm excited for it to an extent. I'm excited for his match with Swerve. Obviously, I think that's going to be a very good match. And wherever this feud ends up going with, the now Hurt Syndicate and Swerve, I don't know where Swerve's going to get backup from, if he's going to need backup. But it's exciting. I think that there are some good matchups for Bobby in AEW and some good feuds, but he's not exactly, like a bout machine the way Shelton is, if that makes sense. Like Shelton, I think is better in the ring and probably has been. Maybe, I don't want to say always, but I think in my opinion, Shelton's been better. I think that they'll still be able to tell good stories with Bobby, but there's already a lot of people in AEW, and there's not a lot of time. I mean, I guess there is Collision, but there's already a lot going on. So, while I'm happy to see him here, and I think there's some good stuff going on, and this is a discussion James and I had the other week where, it's going to be cool to see all these fresh matchups. Every time we get somebody like this in AEW, the roster continues to get saturated. And I know we lost a few people. You can point to the guys like the Lucha Bros are on their way out, even though Tony's kind of dicking them over with their contracts. And you have Ricky Starks just sitting at home doing fuck all for whatever the reason, whether it's they don't have anything for him or he won't agree to it or whatever side you want to believe. I know we've had some spots open up, but there were people on the roster to already fill those spots. So it's the give and take of new talent is fun and cool, but you already have talent there. And so I'm excited for Bobby in AEW. I really am. I know I don't sound like I am, and I'm really excited for all these matchups. I'm curious if you guys have any ideas for opponents after Swerve you want to see Bobby face off against. I'd love to hear them, but off the top of my head, obviously just the main one is Swerve. I imagine at some point he'll probably end up facing off against guys like Brian Cage and Lance Archer, just because him beating those bigger dudes is going to look awesome for him. And then big meaty men slapping meat. We'll definitely get those matches. Love to see him up against somebody maybe like Ishii or even Suzuki. That'd be kind of. Now I want to see Shelton versus Suzuki. I'll tell you that. But there's definitely there's a whole lot of fresh new matchups here for Lashley. Whether it's AEW guys, I don't know what the deal with New Japan is anymore, but I'm sure a couple of the guys coming over there are going to be a lot of fun for him to face off against, and it'll be great. So excited to see him here, and we're continue to be excited for the future of AEW. And that was Dynamite, friends and family. I assume some of my family is watching this at some point. This was good. Obviously, the theme shows are always they always try to bring it for those type of things. And with this being a themed show, I think they brought it tonight. You had 3 very, very good matches in Cole versus Buddy, the tag team title match with the title change, and the main event with Swerve versus Shelton Benjamin. Obviously, the big debut of Bobby Lashley. Private Party, as I just mentioned, win the titles. You got some really interesting details in what is the biggest feud, I think, going in AEW right now, and definitely the biggest mystery with Jon Moxley and the BCC and everything that's going on with them. And now the Bucks are at least their part of it has shifted at least a little bit, where at least for the moment, it looks like they're going to be off the show for a little while, but they've added some intrigue to what their role is, and perhaps leading to Jack Perry changing his mind about being a member of the Elite. So you got a lot of stuff there. I think they did a good job of setting up some stuff for next week. And then you had a couple of things as we get closer and closer to Full Gear. So we set up some stuff for that as well. I'd love to talk more. My voice is really going. and I have to give a speech at some point. You know, it's saying my brother. Congratulations to my brother and his fiance. They're getting married this weekend, and I'm supposed to be giving a speech, so hopefully I'll be able to talk. You know, it's saying that at some point he'd like to see Bobby face off against Darby. I would like to see him also face off against Shelton too, Darby that is, because. But I think it works similarly. Both Bobby and Shelton, you put small athletic guys in the ring with either of them, those guys are going to make them look good. I think Shelton is just slightly more athletic in the way where facing up against a guy like Darby, I think he can keep up with that type of speed. Whereas, Lashley, it's still very fast for a dude his size, but he is that much bigger, so he is a little bit slower, and things. This style of match would change slightly, but it would still be a very good matchup. And I'm curious to see if they do anything since Shelton already faced him. If they do anything with Leo Rush, as obviously those two guys have a lot of history, you know, with Lashley hitting his favorite pose and everything. So we'll see if something comes out of that. So there are a lot of good matchups, and I'm sure when we talk about this more next week, we'll think of some more. Tweet them at us, you know, keep the conversation going online, and I'll give you, it was referring to both. Great. See, great months, man. Great months. But yeah, like I said, you know, if you guys want to chop it up with us over on Twitter about this stuff, we'll be glad to. And speaking of which, I would like to thank everybody for so much for watching me here at the Mark It Down podcast. We'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Liking the video lets us know that you're enjoying what we're doing here on the show. And if you subscribe, you continue to catch all of our weekly episodes. Obviously, we're back here on Wednesdays every week for Dynamite. I believe we're getting the Gym Pack Zone tomorrow from James for those of you who are TNA fans, although we'll see if James is too depressed to do the show after the L tonight. We've also been trying to do a little more SmackDown and Raw as those shows have been really popping off lately. That Bloodline stuff is actually really, really good, and I'm doing my best to keep track of all of it. It's become very, very intriguing. So we're doing our best to cover that stuff as well, and we also do our best to cover as many pay-per-views as we can, whether it's AEW, WWE, sometimes NXT. We've been trying to do NXT a little bit more. That show is picking up, especially now it's over on the CW. We're not doing Crown Jewel because, you know, fuck the Saudi government. So you don't have to worry about that one. But we will do our best to cover everything we can here at the pod. We'd also appreciate it if you subscribe. You can also go see our interview with Alex Shelley, the newest AEW Tag Team Champion, as part of Motor City Machine Guns. So James went over there. James went and talked to him a little while back and talked to him about a lot of good stuff. So go over there, check that out. It's a really good interview. And we would appreciate it if you guys watched it. It's also James's baby, and you should go watch it, like, just for him. But seriously, it's a great interview, and I think you got a lot of insight into Shelley and how he feels about the state of wrestling, tag team wrestling, stuff like that. So we'd appreciate it if you went and watched that. If you want to check us out on any of our social media stuff and you're here on YouTube, you can check out the links in the description below for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. For those of you listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or if you're over on Twitter or Facebook, I hope that Twitter link worked. I don't think it did, but c'est la vie. You can check us out on Twitter at marketdown_pod, on Instagram at marketdownpod, and our YouTube page is youtube.com/marketdown3665. Before I get out of here, one last comment from Great job, Han Solo. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I appreciate you and Hagen with Hunter. Did the combine his name. Appreciate you and Hunter being in the comments, helping me out tonight. It's a lot easier when you have people to bounce off of in the comments when you're on your own. So thank you so much, guys. And thank you, everybody, for watching, being here again at the Mark It Down podcast. And have a good night. Enjoy Halloween. And stay safe tomorrow. I don't know. Also, send us your wrestling costumes. Yeah, do that too. We'll post them on Instagram, I guess. Anyway, night, everyone.